Welcome back into the Eye on College Basketball YouTube page. If you subscribe to the channel and you have ding the bell, then you get the alerts every single time we have something go live. So this is not going to the podcast feed. This is a YouTube only special, as we're going to talk about Auburn and the NCAA sanctions that came down on Friday. They aren't bad for the Tigers, and frankly, that's why there is no emergency podcast for Eye on College Basketball. This is good news for Auburn, but we wanted to deliver some reaction relatively close to after this announcement. So it's just me, Matt Norlander, co-host of the Eye on College Basketball podcast, and let's talk about what the NCAA decided to do on Friday, because it's notable and what did not happen. So what is not happening? Auburn is not getting another postseason ban. Remember, the Tigers self-imposed one a season ago, and because of that, the NCAA's Committee on Infractions decided that was going to be enough. What are the penalties at hand here? Well, Bruce Pearl, he's going to serve a 2-game suspension. All of this is tied to the FBI investigation. Yes. Can you believe this? Since late September of 2017, we finally have a verdict here. If you can't keep track of the stuff, I don't blame you. I'll get into the details here, but as a refresher, here are now the schools that have the FBI stuff behind them. The sanctions have already come down. TCU, Creighton, Oklahoma State, which appealed a postseason ban, lost that appeal, and will sit out in 2022. Auburn, South Carolina, USC, and Alabama. Those are the schools that are done. The schools that still have more to come: Louisville, LSU, Kansas, Arizona. I'll get to those at the end of this little YouTube special for you. But on Friday, the NCAA determined that Chuck Person, former associate head coach at Auburn, it corroborated stuff that happened in court. I was there. I covered it for CBS Sports. He took $91,500 in bribe money. He took that money in part to steer players to Christian Dawkins's then fledgling business enterprise, which Dawkins was unaware at the time was being funded by the FBI because it was a sting operation. Person wound up pleading guilty to those charges. He is going to serve a 10-year show cause. That means that he cannot be hired by any sort of college program unless it can show cause to the NCAA that he is worthy of employment. This never happens. Chuck Person will obviously never work in college basketball ever again. Also, there is a former assistant, Harris Adler. These, by the way, these people aren't named in the NCAA release, but I did the reporting. I know who these people are. So while if you check the official release, it doesn't say who they are, it's not that hard to deduce who it is. Harris Adler got a 1-year show cause because although he did cooperate with the NCAA, he did not meet with them every single time. And so they hit him because he allegedly was willing to help pay the tuition of a former Auburn walk-on player. The players that were involved, the former players also, by the way, served previous suspensions. They're no longer with the program. D'Angelo Purifoy, Austin Wiley. Previous court documents revealed that Purifoy was paid $1,200 and Wiley was paid $800 by person. When that happened, that's when they had to sit. But this has been a long time coming, frankly. It's good news for Auburn. No doubt about it. You don't have to sit this season. You had a bad, for the cynics out there, absolutely. If you're saying Bruce Pearl's done it again and they played it right, they had a poor team. They put a self-imposed postseason ban for 2021, and because of that, the bad team didn't go, wouldn't have gone anyway, and now they've got a team that can go, that has a top 5 pick on the roster, and well done, Bruce Pearl. If you want to be a cynic about it, I totally get it. I kind of thought that there would be a bit more on the table for Pearl, but that's not the case here. He gets a 2-game suspension. He'll be not with the team effective immediately. So he won't coach Saturday against Nebraska. And then Auburn has a Tuesday home game against South Alabama that Pearl will not be on the sideline for. He will return for December 18th. Auburn has a road game against St. Louis. Here's what the NCAA had to say about Bruce Pearl. The committee determined that the men's basketball head coach violated head coach responsibility rules because he did not adequately monitor the associate head coach and failed to promote an atmosphere of compliance. Specifically, the committee noted that the head coach's monitoring efforts were tardy or limited in nature. In its decision, the panel cited several specific examples in which, despite the head coach's claim to have monitored and educated his staff about NCAA compliance, other non-coaching staff members failed to report potential issues to the head coach or the compliance department. Further, when the head coach became aware of potentially problematic situations involving the associate head coach person, he failed to ask reasonable and pertinent questions. These shortcomings allowed violations to go undetected there. Because of that statement, I'm a little surprised that Pearl only got 2 games. I thought he was going to get somewhere closer to the 7 to 10 range. Now, I'll also note Auburn previously it put itself on a recruiting it put recruiting restrictions about what it was doing on the road, right? That happened back in 2019. It kind of did it under the cover of darkness. It eventually got reported, and then there was speculation that it wasn't truly a self-imposed recruiting ban for a limited time going dark. So I bring that up to say Auburn was proactive in many areas to try and get ahead of this, and that paid off. There will be no postseason ban this season. Oklahoma State was assessed a postseason ban for the 2021 season. It appealed that. The appeal process took so long. Remember, OSU was good last season with Cade Cunningham. It made the tournament, and it wound up participating in it. Then, because it appeals this, well, a little while back, right before the season starts, Oklahoma State loses the appeal. It's not going to play in 2022. I think that's ultimately what we're headed toward here with these schools associated with the FBI scandal overall. I still don't think it's a good look for Pearl. Overall, this is still on his resume. You might see a little bit of the Maryland job's going to be open. Wouldn't Pearl make for a candidate? I still don't. Never say never, ever. Never say never. I don't know if Maryland would really be willing to go down that road, though. Pearl has issues, obviously, from his time at Tennessee as well. And some of this dates back to lying to the NCAA with the Aaron Kraft barbecue situation. Man, we've come so far since all of that. But I would suspect that Auburn is Bruce Pearl's and Bruce Pearl is Auburn's. I think that's going to be a marriage for many, many years to come here. This is big news for Tigers fans because they've got Jabari Smith on the roster. He really could be a top 3 pick in next June's NBA draft. He's a really good player, and Auburn is a 7-1 team so far. They've been good. So yeah, the list of punishments, if you will, I'll read them off real quick here. A lot of it's just minutia. 4 years worth of probation. Now, if you do something wrong when you're on probation, like Bruce Pearl and Auburn better not cheat again or get caught cheating, because if you do a no-no when you're on probation, then you can really be looking at some serious penalties down the road. They get a $5,000 fine plus 3% of the men's basketball budget. Like, this isn't nothing, but it's just not huge. They lose 1 scholarship for this past season. That's already been self-imposed. They have to reduce the total number of scholarships by 2 over the next 4 years. So there will be some effects in terms of recruiting. It's not nothing, but it's not huge. Official visits will go down. Unofficial visits and official visits will go down. Phone calls will be were already reduced. That's retroactive. A lot of this stuff is retroactive. Again, person gets a 10-year show cause. I mentioned the other assistant that gets a 1-year show cause. Pearl gets a 2-year suspension. And then there's a vacation of the records in which Wiley and Purifoy would have been playing. Again, eliminating wins from the record book. I've had people within the NCAA, multiple people over the years, tell me they think that punishment is a joke, and no one takes it seriously. Even you'll see many instances in the NCAA record book where a school will have lost those victories, and so it's not technically in the tally in the initial, but then at the bottom of it, you see a little asterisk, and you see the school mentioned and how many games it lost because it was taken. So they're still even in the record book. It's something that I think the NCAA should get rid of, but no matter. Auburn will lose in some official records and not be able to technically list them in its own for its own purposes in its own record books. Lastly, before we wrap this quick little bite-sized deal for YouTube, where do we go from here with the other schools? Here's what I understand right now. The next news that we'll be talking about on this podcast, on this YouTube channel about a school, I believe will be Memphis, which is not tied to the FBI stuff. Remember, that's James Wiseman, Memphis choosing to play him in defiance of the NCAA. I still think there's a chance that could come before the end of this calendar year. We're talking right now, December 10th, the afternoon of December 10th. It wouldn't stun me if that happens before we get to 2022. We'll see. NC State is the next school tied to the FBI that's anticipated to get its verdict. Now, both of those are the independent accountability resolution process. Auburn was traditional. NCAA Committee on Infractions. Oklahoma State, Committee on Infractions. USC, Committee on Infractions. The IARP, as part of the complex case unit, it is a different path. We have not yet had one single case ruled by the IARP. No one truly knows what's going to happen with any of those, but Memphis is scheduled to be first. Could it receive a postseason ban? Would that happen this season, or would it be in effect for next season? Will there be any kind of ban? What kind of suspension for Penny Hardaway? We wait and see on that. Then NC State which had Mark Gottfried at the time with the FBI stuff, an assistant going, handing over cash to through TJ Gassinola, who pled guilty and was a federal witness for the government during those court cases. Keep an eye on that. So Memphis, NC State, and then you've got the likes of Kansas, Arizona, LSU, Louisville. My understanding is that none of those are going to get resolved this season at all. I think you're looking at late next summer at the earliest. Based on my intel, I don't think Kansas and Arizona are getting their word before next fall. And now they could get word and get a postseason ban right up against the season. I disagree with that. I think there should be guardrails that prevent, there should be a window when that can be handed down. That's my expectation. LSU is still in the process. Maybe it winds up being last, although it could be Louisville. Louisville has had so many issues folded in because it was on probation. It broke these rules with the FBI. Then you had the Chris Mack stuff. By the way, Chris Mack served a suspension 3 times as long for the HR violations tied to the extortion attempt by his former assistant, Dino Gaudio. Pro gets 2 games. None of this stuff is ever consistent. But I don't know when Louisville's timeline is going to wrap. It could be earlier than LSU, Arizona, Kansas. Could be the last one. We wait and see on that. I think Memphis first, then NC State. And that's where we're at. This is going to continue to be the FBI saga that began in late September of 2017. It's not done yet. We're getting there, but I still think we're 8, 10, maybe 12 months away from truly having it fully behind us. But it is a good day for Auburn. Won't have Pearl for a couple of games. I do think this team is going to get to the NCAA tournament. Jabari Smith, as an aside, is a phenomenal player, amazing athlete. If you have not yet seen Auburn play this season, you will quite enjoy him. And I can guarantee you that even though Bruce Pearl would prefer not to be suspended, the people in that athletic department are celebrating on Friday this weekend because they dodged anything of significant consequence. This team can be a factor in the SEC. It can be a top 20 team this season. And so the Auburn Tigers, I believe, will be a part of March Madness come March of 2022. Thank you for watching. This is the Eye on College Basketball YouTube channel. If you have discovered this video and are unaware, we do have a podcast. Go ahead and search it. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. Eye on College Basketball. Me and my co-host, Gary Parrish. During the season, we're giving you at least 3 episodes every week. Every episode is also live on YouTube. Be sure to like this video. Click that thumbs up. Be sure to ding the bell or click the bell. Whatever we're doing with the bell, if you click the bell and subscribe to the channel, it helps boost, and you will get alerts every single time we post a new video, either an episode, a live episode, a breakout like this, special segments. We're right here for you. Thank you for listening, and we'll be back with the next edition of Eye on College Basketball live on Sunday night to wrap a great weekend in college hoops.